Hey, what's going on, guys? Welcome to the channel. This Saturday is UFC Vegas 81, Sodiq Yusuff versus Edson Barboza, and this is going to be my full card predictions. I'm going to go through every single fight on the card and give you a quick breakdown and prediction. Starting off with the first fight of the night, Tainara Lisboa versus Ravena Oliveira. Bottom of the barrel women's MMA. You have Oliveira making her UFC debut, but look at her experience prior to the UFC. Her last opponent was 8-5. Before that, the last three opponents were all 0-0, making their pro MMA debut. And then if you go back 4 opponents ago, or technically 5 opponents ago, you have a girl who's 1-1. So the majority of her wins have come across basically grocery store cashiers, probably even worse than that because I didn't watch all the fight footage. It's hard to find fight footage on her. I watched her last fight. She seems like she wants to grapple, look for the takedown, look for the clinch. And on the feet, she kind of squares up and throws wild winging shots. You have Lisboa, who made her UFC debut in her last fight, beat Jessica Rose Clark, submitted her, showed some decent striking, showed some decent defensive grappling and offensive grappling, got the submission in that fight. And honestly, the way I saw Oliveira strike, it's so bad. I think she's going to rush in, looking for the clinch, looking for the takedowns. And I think if she can't get those takedowns, I think she's going to get beat up on the feet. Lisboa has decent cardio, has decent combinations. And I think Oliveira, I'm going to predict Lisboa to get a second round TKO. She has 6 wins. All 6 of them come via finish. So I think she either hurts her, finishes her with a ground and pound, or hurts her and then submits her, maybe grabs a rear naked choke or a guillotine on the ground. I'm going to Tainara Lisboa, second round TKO. Moving up on the card, we have Terrance McKinney versus Brendon Marotte. Brendon Marotte stepping in on short notice. It was originally supposed to be Chris Duncan, which was a fight that I was really looking forward to. Brendon Marotte, honestly, I couldn't find a lot of fight footage on him. His last opponent was 11-20. His 11-20. What a horrible record that is. The guy before that was 3-1. And then 3 fights ago equals 4 years ago for Brendon Marotte. Brendon Marotte's 26 years old. 3 fights ago, he was 22 years old. Terrance McKinney, I know he's hit or miss sometimes. I know the cardio's kind of an issue, but Terrance McKinney got a win in his last fight against Mike Brendon, who may be even better than Brendon Marotte. It's hard to really tell because the only fight footage I could find of Brendon Marotte was 4 years ago. But Marotte, he looks like he's primarily a striker. He throws a lot of kicks. Looks small for 155, but again, that was 4 years ago, so maybe he's improved vastly, but he's just been inactive. Terrance McKinney, look who he's losing to. Nazim Sadykhov, Ismail Bonfim. Not horrible losses, not great losses either. Lost to Drew Dober on short notice himself. Terrance McKinney has good wrestling, super explosive on the feet, and if he doesn't gas himself out, he usually wins. He finds a way to get a finish. It's usually early, though. So it's like if Terrance McKinney doesn't get the first round finish here, maybe Marotte will come in with an upset. We've seen kind of a history of that in 2023, guys stepping in on short notice and getting finishes. But ultimately, I think Terrance McKinney starches him in the first 2 minutes of the first round. Brutal KO by Terrance McKinney. I have to pick him. How can I pick Brendon Marotte, who's been inactive for basically the last 3 years and has been fighting very low-level competition? So I have to go Terrance McKinney. Brutal first-round KO. Moving up on the card, we have Ashley Yoder versus Emily Ducote. Oh, my goodness. I don't even want to talk about this fight. Both are on 2-fight losing streaks. Ashley Yoder is 35 years old, going on 36. She lost to Jinyu Frey in her last fight, lost to Angela Hill in the fight before that. Then her win was against Miranda Granger. Then before that, lost her last 2 fights. So she's 1-4 in her last 5 fights. You have Ducote, who's coming in on a 2-fight losing streak. Lost to Lupe Godinez, but it was mildly competitive, and we've seen how good Gutierrez is, so it's kind of aged all right. I mean, that's a bit of a stretch. And then a loss to Angela Hill. Honestly, when I look at this fight, I basically look at age. I see 35 years old for Yoder. I see 29 years old for Ducote. I'm going Emily Ducote. I think, she'll land harder shots on the feet. I do worry about this pick because I don't think, even though I don't think Yoder belongs in the UFC, I think she's kind of better than her record indicates. When I went back and watched some of her fights, she had mildly competitive fights with Angela Hill, but Angela Hill's kind of hit or miss as well. But, she does have a massive reach advantage. She has a 6.5-inch reach advantage, 5-inch height advantage. But I think Ducote will close the distance, maybe mix in some of the grappling, and I just think she'll land better, harder shots. I think it's going to be a competitive fight, and honestly, I think it could probably go either way. But I'm going to go Emily Ducote, 29-28 decision. Moving up on the card, we have Chris Gutierrez versus Alatengheili. Another short notice matchup here. Chris Gutierrez was supposed to fight Montel Jackson in his last fight. It got Montel Jackson pulled out, so it got rescheduled for this week against Alatengheili. So Haley stepping in on short notice. Chris Gutierrez lost his last fight against Pedro Munoz, but we know how good Pedro Munoz is. And Chris Gutierrez kind of was gun shy in that fight, kind of didn't really throw a whole lot, was a little bit inactive. You have Alatengheili coming off a win over Chad Anheliger. Fight before that beat Kevin Kroom, but neither one of those wins are particularly good. And then the fight before that had a decision draw against Gustavo Lopez. He was winning the first 2 rounds. Then in the 3rd round, he started to gas out. He grabbed the fence multiple times, had a point deducted, got put back in the clinch position against the fence, grabs the fence again. Luckily, they didn't take another point. But if they would have, he might have lost the fight based on 2 point deductions, which would have been absolutely crazy. But he lost the 3rd round, so it ends up being a draw. Alatengheili's kind of just a well-rounded fighter, not great anywhere. His takedown defense is a little bit suspect, but so is Chris Gutierrez. I think this fight's going to be primarily contested on the feet. And I think Chris Gutierrez is the better striker. I think Chris Gutierrez, he's shown, in the Frankie Edgar fight, brutal KO, brutal flying knee KO. Before that, it was spinning back fist KO. Before that, okay, a split decision win. But either way, you have Chris Gutierrez, who has great kicks, good leg kicks, good body kicks. His hands aren't the greatest, but I think he's a better striker than Alatengheili. And I do worry about Gutierrez's takedown defense as well. It's not particularly good, but I don't think either one of these guys is going to wrestle. So I'm going to go Chris Gutierrez via 30-27 decision. I think coming off a loss against Pedro Munoz, I think he's going to be more motivated than ever. I think he has the better striking than Alatengheili, and I think he gets it done on the feet, chops the legs, maybe finds like a late 2nd round, or 3rd round finish. But I think Chris Gutierrez gets it done pretty cleanly. 30-27 decision for Chris Gutierrez. Moving up on the card, we have Irina Alekseeva versus Melissa Dixon. This is a matchup that, honestly, I don't really care for this matchup. I'm a little bit more excited for this fight than I am some of the other bottom-of-the-barrel women's MMA fights. But Alekseeva, in her last fight, came in against Stephanie Edgar, got a submission via knee bar, was an absolute savage in that fight, came out pressing forward, landing big shots. Eventually, you had Stephanie Edgar looking for a takedown. Alekseeva just rolled for a knee bar and got the knee bar. Melissa Dixon won her last fight against a girl who's 7-0, but she was getting battered in that fight. And I thought it was getting close to getting stopped, and then the girl kind of gassed out, and then Dixon was able to out-grapple her. I honestly could see this fight going either way. Dixon's very durable, has good grappling. Alekseeva, obviously, we saw some really good, submission ability in her last fight. But she's 5-1 versus 5-0. Honestly, I'm going to go Irina Alekseeva. I think she gets it done. I don't know how she's going to get it done. I'm going to say 1st round TKO. Honestly, I was debating. Usually women's MMA, I'm picking decisions. But Alekseeva, the way she rushes forwards and throws wild winging combinations, and Dixon was getting battered on the feet in her last fight, I think Alekseeva gets it done. I think she could even hurt her, maybe follow her to the ground and find another submission. I'm going to say she gets it done in the 1st round. Alekseeva just rushes forward nonstop and just looks to throw big, wild winging shots. At least that's what she showed in her last fight. So I'm going to go Alekseeva, 1st round TKO, drops her with a big shot, follows her to the ground and pound TKO. Moving up on the card, we have Darren Elkins versus TJ Brown. This is an interesting fight that's actually kind of hard to pick because Darren Elkins is so damn durable. The guy just does not go away. His last fight against Jonathan Pierce lost the decision there. Before that, has a decision win over Tristan Connolly. Before that, he got KO'd by Cub Swanson, but that's kind of a rarity for Darren Elkins. Before that, a win over Derek Minner. So Darren Elkins isn't getting the best wins. And most of the time when he loses, he's just getting beaten up so badly and takes a lot of damage. Then you have TJ Brown coming off a loss against Bill Algeo, then a win against Eric Silva via submission, then another loss there. So he's 1-2 in his last 3 fights. TJ Brown, I feel like he's improving. I feel like he likes to grapple primarily. And I feel like he kind of gasses. We've seen him kind of gas out towards the later rounds in certain fights, but honestly, I flipped and flopped back and forth. I'm having trouble picking this card in general. I'm still thinking about some of my picks while I'm making this video. But I'm going to say TJ Brown gets it done via decision. I'm going to say he pulls it off via decision. I think he's better than Darren Elkins. I don't think Darren Elkins is that good. He just relies on his durability and his pressure. I could see a scenario where maybe Darren Elkins is like, pressing forward in the 3rd round, all beaten up and all bloodied, and TJ Brown is gassing out. Maybe TJ Brown gets 3rd round TKO'd. But I think TJ Brown has good grappling, has good top control, has a decent, BJJ game on the ground as well, and his striking is improving. So I'm gonna pick him to beat Darren Elkins. I'm going to say 29-28. Even if TJ Brown doesn't get finished in the third round, I'm going to say he loses the third round. I'm going to go TJ Brown 29-28 decision. Moving up on the card to the main card, Christian Rodriguez versus Cameron Saaiman. This is a banger of a fight. I love this bantamweight matchup. You have Christian Rodriguez coming off the win against Raul Rosas Jr., before that, a win over Joshua Weems. His last loss was against Jonathan Pierce. Not a horrible loss to have, and that was 2 years ago. Cameron Saaiman coming off a win over Terrance Mitchell, where he TKO'd him in the first round. A win over Martinez. It was a majority decision where he got a point deducted. A win over Steven Kozlow, where he got a TKO in the third round of a fight where he got a point deducted as well. He came off of Dana White's Contender Series. He's 22 years old. And he looks really, really good. He looks good on the feet. He has decent finishing ability. He has decent grappling as well. Really good scrambles. But Christian Rodriguez exposed Raul Rosas Jr. in his last fight. And I think Christian Rodriguez is better than a lot of people give him credit for. And he's really hard to take down and hold down. He has great scrambles, great BJJ, and he has stamina to do it for 3 rounds. I don't know about Saaiman. I mean, we've seen him go 3 rounds, but I don't think he can go at the same pace Christian Rodriguez can. But I do think that Saaiman has a little bit better striking. I think he has an advantage on the feet. I think he's faster on the feet. I do think he has more power as well. And this is one of those fights that could go either way. I'm going to go Christian Rodriguez to win via decision. I think he gets it done via decision. I think he's the better offensive grappler. We've seen him out wrestle Raul Rosas Jr. in the second and third round. And also, we've seen Saaiman get taken down by Terrance Mitchell early in their fight. We've seen him, I think he got took down by Martinez, So I think Saaiman, even in the Steven Kozlow fight, where he came back in the third round and got a finish there, he had a point deducted because he was cheating so many times. It was like low blows and eye pokes. I don't remember because Saaiman's cheated so much in so many different fights. I believe they're kind of all unintentional, but still he's kind of known for that. But all these fights outside of the Terrance Mitchell fight were kind of competitive, and he's kind of had like low blows and eye pokes to help him along the way. I think Christian Rodriguez gets it done. I'm going to pick Christian Rodriguez to win a very tough and close 29-28 decision. I think he's going to win it with his grappling, but I also think he has really good striking as well. You look at their reaches, you have Christian Rodriguez has a 4-inch reach advantage, 1-inch height advantage. And also, I just think Rodriguez is just a little bit older, a little bit more experienced. And I think Saaiman, I think he's due for a setback. I think he's due to get exposed at 22 years old. I know there's a lot of hype behind him, but I think Christian Rodriguez gets it done. I think that Saaiman maybe lands some good shots in the first round, maybe a very close first round that maybe goes to Saaiman. And I think in the second and third round, I think Rodriguez is going to use his striking on the feet to set up some takedowns, get some positional control, get some ground and pound there, maybe get to some advantageous positions, not allow Saaiman to scramble out of them and use his grappling to get back to the feet. And I'm going to go Christian Rodriguez 29-28 decision, but I cannot wait for that fight. Moving up on the card, we have Edgar Cháirez versus Daniel Lacerda. This is a fight that happened a couple weeks ago. It ended up being a no contest because of a premature stoppage. I think Cháirez should have won that fight. I think Lacerda went out. I think he was out cold. And I think the ref made the right decision stopping the fight. Unfortunately, they overturn it. But nonetheless, we're getting this fight again. I think this is a banger fight. I know Lacerda's on this long losing streak, but he's been competitive in all these fights. He was competitive against CJ Vergara, then he gassed out. He was competitive against Victor Altamirano. He was competitive against Francisco Figueiredo. So he's a good fighter. He has some good striking. He's super wild and crazy and looking for big power shots. And we've seen Cháirez in his last fight made his UFC debut against Tatsuro Taira, where he almost got the guillotine multiple times. The third round, Taira was saved by the bell. And in the first fight, I picked Cháirez via first round guillotine. And I'm going to make that pick again. I think Cháirez is good enough on the feet. I think he'll be fine on the feet. I think he'll force Lacerda to look for takedowns, look to clinch. And I think he's going to get caught in a guillotine again. I think the same thing that happened in the first fight is going to happen again. But this time he's going to tap out, or this time he's actually going to go out cold. I'm taking Edgar Cháirez to win this fight. I'm very confident that he finds a submission. I mean, he's constantly looking to set up those guillotines. He was doing it in the Taira fight. He found one in that third round. Taira got saved by the bell. I don't think Daniel Lacerda, I don't think he's going to make the adjustments in 2 weeks to avoid that guillotine again. So I'm going to go Edgar Cháirez via first round guillotine submission. Moving up on the card, we have Michel Pereira versus Andre Petroski. Another short notice fight. Andre Petroski stepping in on short notice in this one. And honestly, This is a matchup that I feel like could go either way. You have Michel Pereira moving up to 185 now. He was at 170. He was supposed to fight Wonderboy. He missed weight. Wonderboy pulled out of the fight. And now he's fighting Andre Petroski, who has some decent grappling. He has some very good grappling. And, you know, I honestly, this fight is really hard to pick. I want to pick Michel Pereira because I feel like he's the better striker, has good kicks. But I do worry about his grappling. And also, I think one key point to this fight is the fact that Pereira's moving up to middleweight. He always has a size advantage at welterweight. Now he's moving up a weight class. And I just don't know what the size difference is going to be between him and Petroski. And Petroski has some good grappling. You know, he was able to take down Gerald Meerschaert, beat him up. He did gas out in the third round and, you know, got beat up a little bit by Gerald Meerschaert in the third round. The fight before that showed some decent grappling against Wellington Turman. And we've seen Pereira taken down before. We've seen him controlled in the clinch. And also, a lot of Pereira's wins haven't aged that well. Okay, he got a win over Ponzinibbio. That was a close fight. Could have went either way, in my opinion. He had a win over Andre Fialho, a close fight there. And I believe Fialho even took him down or had some top control in that fight as well. Then the fight before that, Nico Price was pushing him against the fence and kind of bullying him a little bit up against the fence. This is a fight where I think you're going to have Petroski looking for takedowns early and often. And I don't think Pereira, he kind of covered up his takedown defense deficiencies with his size advantage. He's super athletic, and he had a massive size advantage. And I don't think he's going to have that against Petroski. But I do think Pereira is the much better striker, has excellent kicks, is super unorthodox, has good lateral movement. So I do think maybe Pereira moving side to side and just kind of picking him apart at range with kicks. But I'm gonna go Petroski. I think Petroski's gonna out-grapple him. I think Michel Pereira is massively overrated. He should have never been top 15. I mean, his best wins against Santiago Ponzinibbio, all the other wins are not very good, and a lot of them are close too. The Ponzinibbio fight, close. The Andre Fialho fight was even close. The Chaos Williams fight was even close. I mean, maybe there's a bit of a stretch. I don't think he's that good. He has a loss to Diego Sanchez. I know it was a DQ, but it's still a loss to Diego Sanchez, and that fight was competitive. He didn't get a first-round finish. So, and I know that was a while ago, but still, I don't think Pereira's gotten that much better. He's moving up a weight class. If this was at 170, I'd probably pick Pereira. And I was close to picking Pereira anyway. But he's moving up to 185. I think Andre Petroski has decent takedowns. He has decent single legs, double legs. He'll work the clinch. He'll push Michel Pereira up against the fence. And I don't trust Petroski's cardio, considering what we saw against Gerald Meerschaert and the fact that he's taking this on short notice. But I don't trust Michel Pereira's cardio either, especially when he's dealing with a guy up a weight class, pushing him against the fence and grinding on him. So I'm going to go Andre Petroski. I'm going to say he gets it done. I'm going to say 29-28 decision. Maybe loses the first round. Michel Pereira, really good lateral movement, avoiding the takedowns. But honestly, it wouldn't shock me if Petroski gets it done via submission. It wouldn't shock me if Petroski gets it done 30-27. It also wouldn't shock me if Michel Pereira gets it done via decision. I don't think Pereira's going to find a finish unless Petroski just gasses himself out looking for big haymakers. But overall, I think Petroski gets it done. You know, it's not, look, Pereira's used to having a reach advantage. They have the same reach. They're basically the same height. They're roughly the same age. And I don't think Michel Pereira is going to be used to hanging out against the fence with a guy the size of Andre Petroski. Not that Petroski's that big for middleweight, but he's much bigger than some of the, you know, Diego Sanchez at welterweight. I mean, he didn't even belong at welterweight. And Michel Pereira's having a mildly competitive fight. It's a bit of an exaggeration, but you get my point. So I'm going Andre Petroski, 29-28 decision. Moving up on the card to the featured fight on the main card. And technically, I kind of swapped this around a little bit because I think the UFC is going to end up swapping this around, and this is how it should be. But the featured fight on the main card, we have Jennifer Maia versus Viviane Araújo. This is listed on the UFC's website as the co-main event, but there's no way that's the co-main event, so I'm just changing it around. This is a fight I'm not super interested in. Jennifer Maia, I know she had a mildly competitive fight with Valentina Shevchenko years ago. She's on a 2-fight win streak against Casey O'Neill and Mayra Moroz. You have Viviane Araújo coming off a loss to Amanda Ribas and Alexa Grasso. Her last win was against Andrea Lee, which is an okay win. Honestly, this isn't a low-level women's MMA fight. This is kind of like a mid-tier women's MMA fight. And these are very similar fighters. They kind of have sloppy striking on the feet. They both kind of have okay grappling. But I think what this comes down to is I think Jennifer Maia has better grappling. She has better top control. I think maybe Viviane Araújo will be able to scramble up and get out from underneath of her. And Jennifer Maia doesn't have the best takedowns, but I think Maia's decent enough on the feet where I think she'll land some shots against Araújo. I think she'll mix in some clinch work, mix in some takedowns. Again, she doesn't have the best takedowns, but she will push Araújo up against the fence, and Araújo starts to wear down. And so I think Jennifer Maia gets this done. I'm going to go Jennifer Maia 30-27 decision. I think with the striking, the grappling, I think it'll be a competitive fight, but I think Maia will get some top control. I think she'll take her down, control her a bit. We've seen it happen. I think it was against Amanda Ribas. She got taken down and controlled. It happened against Grasso a little bit as well. And Araújo doesn't have the best gas tank. And on top of that, she's 36 going on 37 years old. Maia isn't young herself. She's 35 years old. But I think she's better. She has better grappling, has better takedowns, has better clinch work, has better cardio as well. I think Jennifer Maia gets it done with her clinch and with her grappling and top control. Moving up on the card to what I believe will be the co-main event, Jonathan Martinez versus Adrian Yanez. I know people are going to say you're pronouncing his name wrong, but this is how he always says you pronounce his name. And every time I get comments on it, you're pronouncing his name wrong, but his name is Adrian Yanez. You have Jonathan Martinez on a long win streak, coming off a win over Said Nurmagomedov. Very good win there. But I thought Nurmagomedov should have won that fight. And then the fight before that, okay, he TKO'd Cub Swanson with leg kicks. You have Yanez coming off a loss against Rob Font. Looked okay early in that fight, then gets absolutely starched. I think he got a little bit too comfortable on the feet. Before that, brutally KO'd Tony Kelly. And then before that, win over Davey Grant. It was a split decision. Probably should have been a unanimous decision. This is a banger matchup, and this has to be the co-main event. You cannot convince me that this isn't the co-main event of this card. Martinez, really good kicks overall. Head kicks, body kicks, leg kicks. But honestly, he likes to grapple quite a bit. He likes to push his opponents up against the fence, look for takedowns, and kind of grind out against the fence. I know that's not what you really think of when you think of Jonathan Martinez, but when I went back and watched some of his fights, in a lot of these fights against Nurmagomedov, he was initiating some grappling exchanges. Same thing against Cub Swanson. Same thing against Vince Morales. I've seen it time and time again for Jonathan Martinez. Yanez just likes to box. That's what he likes to do. Doesn't mix in a whole lot of kicking game. Has very fast hands. Has very good power. He's coming off the loss against Rob Font, but I don't think it's that bad of a loss. You know, Rob Font is still a very good top 10 bantamweight. I love this matchup. I absolutely love this matchup. I think it's going to be the kicks of Jonathan Martinez versus the hands of Adrian Yanez. And I've seen Jonathan Martinez KO'd before. I've seen him KO'd before badly by Davey Grant, who Yanez has a win over. And I know these were both those fights were a while ago, and MMA math doesn't work. But I think Yanez is going to be much better on the feet. I think he has really good footwork. And I think if Martinez wins this fight, he'll have to be super well-rounded, mixing a lot of that grappling, maybe get some takedowns in control. And we haven't really seen Yanez's grappling tested all that much, but I don't think Martinez is the guy to be able to figure that out and just get him down and control him to win this fight. I think it's going to be primarily contested on the feet. I think you're going to see Martinez kind of, beating up the lead leg of Yanez, but I think Yanez's hands are going to be the difference in this fight. I think he's going to be using his boxing. I think he's going to find good combinations. I think he's going to be a little bit more careful in this fight. He's not going to get too carried away like he did against Rob Font, where he just started to kind of get into a brawl there, and Rob Font ended up coming out ahead in that fight. And I think Yanez just far superior on the feet. And honestly, I don't think Martinez can win this fight if it's just all 3 rounds are contested on the feet. Without Martinez getting some takedowns, some clinch control, I don't see him winning this fight. I'm going to go Adrian Yanez, second round TKO. I think his hands are super fast, has nasty power. I think he gets it done against Jonathan Martinez. Moving up on the card to the main event, Sodiq Yusuff versus Edson Barboza. Honestly, is this really main event caliber? I guess so, for the Apex maybe, but I'm not dying to see this matchup. It's a top 15 featherweight fight. I'm more excited for Yanez versus Martinez. I think that's more of a banger than this main event. But this main event's decent. Edson Barboza is really never in a boring fight. He's coming off that brutal flying knee or step-in knee KO against Billy Q. You have Sodiq Yusuff on a 2-fight winning streak, but again, not against the best opponents. Don Cháirez in his last fight. Cháirez the fight before that, which is a decent win, but that was a year and a half ago. Sodiq Yusuff is kind of inactive. Before that, has a loss against Arnold Allen. It was a competitive fight, but Arnold Allen was hurting him on the feet in that fight. When I look at this fight, honestly, I think prime Edson Barboza probably finds like a TKO or KO. But against Sodiq Yusuff, all Sodiq Yusuff does is just press forward. He's a pressure fighter. And what does Edson Barboza always have trouble with? He has trouble with pressure fighters, and he starts to get tired. And even in the Billy Q fight where he gets the KO, we're half a round in, and Edson Barboza was starting to look tired there. And you look at the fights before that, lost to Bryce Mitchell, pressuring nonstop, looking for takedowns. Fight before that, Giga Chikadze just pressing forward, landing combinations, eventually got the finish. And Sodiq Yusuff is a very well-rounded fighter, has decent grappling, has decent hands, is defensively responsible enough, and he will constantly pressure. And I think in this fight, I think Sodiq Yusuff going to be mixing in the takedowns. Edson Barboza has good takedown defense, but I think it's kind of regressed a little bit as he's gotten older and a little less athletic. And I think Sodiq Yusuff will just mix it in to kind of tire out the arms of Edson Barboza. And also, Edson Barboza hasn't really improved over the years. He's primarily always been a kicker. He has elite level kicks, leg kicks, body kicks, spinning attacks. I mean, he has an arsenal of kicks that's amazing, but his hands haven't really improved that much. And I think with Sodiq Yusuff kind of backing him up, creating limited space, I think Sodiq Yusuff is going to go out there and kind of press Edson Barboza up against the fence, kind of wear him out a little bit. And I'm actually going to predict Sodiq Yusuff's second round submission. I'm going to call a second round guillotine for Sodiq Yusuff. I think he gets it done. I mean, Sodiq Yusuff, he had a tight guillotine against Arnold Allen in the first round that Arnold Allen got out of. And look how good Arnold Allen is now. We didn't know that 2.5 years ago. And I do worry about the inactiveness of Sodiq Yusuff. Maybe, he's been dealing with injuries. Maybe he's not going to come back the same. But he's 30 years old. Versus Edson Barboza, who's 37 years old, going on 38, slowing down, relies on the kicks too much from space. And I don't think Sodiq Yusuff is going to give him that space. And also, Edson Barboza slows down. He's so explosive, so powerful with his kicks, but he slows down. So I thought about picking Sodiq Yusuff via decision. I could see Sodiq Yusuff getting a finish on the feet with via KO. I don't think that's the most likely scenario. But I know submission sounds crazy considering Sodiq Yusuff, I believe he just got his first pro MMA submission in his last fight, and that's against Don Cháirez. So maybe he doesn't get it, but I just see a scenario where Yusuff is kind of looking for a takedown up against the fence, looking for a trip. Edson Barboza is trying to stay on his feet. Maybe he gets on his palms and hands and knees, and he's trying to get back to his feet. And I see Sodiq Yusuff snatching up a guillotine on a tired Edson Barboza, late second round, getting it done. Or I could see Yusuff catching him, with a nasty shot on the feet with his hands, maybe even a power jab like Bobby Green or something like that. Hurting Edson Barboza badly. The reason I say that is I think of the Donald Cowboy Cerrone finish of Edson Barboza. Hurts him with a jab and then rear naked choke immediately afterwards. But I see Sodiq Yusuff hurting him badly on the feet with the pressure style up against the fence, or finding a scramble and finding a guillotine in the late second round. And I think Edson Barboza will already start to be fatigued in that late second round. I'm going Sodiq Yusuff, second round submission, guillotine. Maybe I'm crazy. Let me know down in the comments. Don't forget to like the video. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel. And thank you so much for watching.